High Point Regional High School, in partnership with staff, family, and community, is dedicated to the quest for individual excellence. By fostering high standards of achievement, we prepare students to become responsible and productive members of a diverse society. May I ask for a roll call, please?
Mr. Comfort?
Yes. Here.
Mrs. Schuman? Here. Mr. Carrazza? Yeah, we'll give him a chance. Ms. Smith? Here. Ms. Sedona? Here. Ms. Ireland? Here. Mr. Arnold?
Here.
Mr. Dunn?
Here.
Dr. Ripley?
Here.
Myself? We do have a quorum.
Motion will be made that the High Point Regional High School Board of Education enter executive session to provide an update on legal, personnel, and negotiations items which are exempt from public participation pursuant to New Jersey Public Law 1975, Chapter 231, Open Public Meetings Act. Any discussions held by the board which need not remain confidential will be made public when appropriate. Minutes of the executive session will not be disclosed until the need for confidentiality no longer exists. The board will reconvene in public session, in person and virtually, at the conclusion of the executive session. It is not anticipated that any action will be taken, and we expect that to be about 7 o'clock. 7 p.m. So, may I have a motion?
Motion.
And a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, we are now in executive session. May I please have a motion to return to public session?
Motion. Oh, there you go.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We are now in public session. So back to our agenda. We have no unfinished business this evening, so we'll move directly to approval of minutes.
Okay, we have the regular minutes of December 22nd, 2021. Standard business was conducted, including transportation, financial resolutions, principals report, athletic report, curriculum and instruction report, and there were also several personnel items that were addressed and voted on. And the meeting ended with some heartfelt thank yous for Patty Nugent and Mrs. Debbie Anderson for their dedicated service on the board. Neither had sought re-election. For the executive session of the same meeting, December 22nd, 2021, the executive session topics for legal, personnel, and negotiations. There was only an update on one, which was personnel, and those items were all included on the agenda that evening, so there is no issue with confidentiality because they were all addressed at that meeting, including the need for an interim assistant principal, a full-time temporary contact tracing secretarial position, which both of those positions will be utilizing ESSER funds, and the resignation of one teacher. There was no major update on the HPA contract, and the legal matters, we didn't have a major update on those. The reorganization meeting, January 4th, 2022, we had 4 new board members were sworn in by the board secretary. We had an election of officers. The board president is Mr. Wayne Dunn. The board vice president is Mr. Spencer Arnold. There was no executive session at that meeting. All of the required reorganization appointments were made. Annual meeting schedule was approved. I read the code of ethics for the board. We completed the financial accounts and went over various other standard resolutions for the reorganization requirements.
Excellent. Okay, any discussion on those minutes? If not, we'll take a roll call, or we do?
Any motion?
Oh, we need a motion first, sorry, to approve the minutes of regular session December 22nd, 2021, executive session December 22, 2021, and the reorganization minutes of January 4th, 2022.
Motion.
In a second. Now, I should ask if there's any discussion on those minutes or corrections. And if not, I do a roll call or?
Yep. Mr. Comfort?
Here.
Mrs. Schuman? Yes. Ms. Smith?
Yes to the regular and executive December 22nd. I'll abstain from the 4th since I wasn't in attendance.
Ms. Ireland?
Yes to the January 4th. I'm going to abstain from the December because I wasn't sworn in.
Mr. Dona?
Yes.
Mr. Arnold?
Yes.
Mr. Dunn?
Yes.
All motions carried.
Yes.
Yes.
Fine, right?
Yes. I had to look, I was doing my little tick marks on that.
Next item on the agenda is the first public comment session. In accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act, we will open the public comments for agenda items only at this time. Each speaker should state his or her name and address. You will have 3 minutes to address the board, which will be timed by myself. We will limit this section to no longer than 45 minutes. Please be respectful and mindful that your comments are being recorded. And if there's anyone present here in person, you may step to the podium. If there is anyone that would like to address the board virtually, please do so by virtually raising your hand on our online platform and we will recognize you. Don't believe there's anyone here in person. We don't see anybody online?
Not that wants to speak.
Okay. Very good. May I have a motion to close the first public comment section on agenda items only?
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, there is a second public comment section later in the evening. Now we proceed to our presentations. First on the agenda is for student council. I did not see.
The speaker is
Oh,
so she's not able to attend, and
certainly,
something
yes.
that the area.
Yes, she's been very faithful in coming to us, so I'm sure there was a reason why not.
Oh, that was conscious. Shouldn't keep you back here just for the meeting.
Next we have the HPEA, Ms. Carla Mancuso, HPEA President.
Dr. Ripley, welcome, and the new members, welcome, and the old members, welcome. Thank you for your service. HPA would like to extend our gratitude to Dr. Ripley and the board for supplying the N95 masks which came in today. Thank you very much. That was a great concern because, Murphy and everything else was up in, what would you say, limbo as opposed to what was gonna go on with the masks. And science says that N95s will protect everybody involved. But thank you, Dr. Ripley, for the attention in that matter and to the board.
Thank you for bringing it to my attention when you did. I didn't properly recognize you at that one meeting, which I should have. It slipped my mind because of the nature of the discussion, but I want to give you the credit for having brought it to my attention. Thank you.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it very much. We're all under a lot of stress. I just saw that our attendance rate for our staff has gone down, but we are all chipping in. This is a difficult time for all of us, but we all work as a team. And I got permission, Mela Trenta turned 61 over the weekend. And it's interesting that we can share that we are a seasoned staff and we're ready to come on board when needed. We all chip in, no matter what. We work with our leader over here, John Talamay, and whatnot. We haven't approved, ratified our contract. We're just waiting, and I know Mr. Dunn has our salary scales, and we're waiting for that to present it to our membership, but we have released to be able to do our AM duties, so we can continue on with supporting everybody that's involved. Also, in great regret, Paul Batista is one of our custodial staff members who's been on board for years. He lost his mother. He just came back from Florida, and then he just lost an uncle also. They're all in their late 80s and 90s. It's a very difficult time for everyone that's involved. Otherwise, on the happier note, again, welcome, and we continue to work together as a team. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Mancuso. Next, we have, the principal's report, and athletics report, Mr. John.
Good evening, everybody.
Good
Welcome,
evening.
Ms. Otter. Welcome, Mr. Comforth, to the team. Thank you, Mr. Mafuso, for your work as well. Just real quick, a condensed report a little bit this evening. It's only small athletics, and a couple of things to hit on. One area, I did speak to her this, last week when we met. She apologized she couldn't be here, but she was doing some things that are probably a little bit nicer and different. The aspect of, as you can see around the room, even here in this area, student council is sponsoring, and we talked about this a little bit in previous months, the character initiatives. This month was respect. Next month is caring and compassion. And the goal of student council in the next 5 months is to focus on one element of character each month and develop activities around that. January is difficult as we come back from break and all those things, and we have midterms and snow days and everything else that gets mixed in. Proud of student council leadership for getting that off the ground. Also will coincide very much with our climate team on what their focus is going to be as well. So trying to focus a lot of arrows in the same direction, and very proud about that as well. Our student council executive president did a live Google Meet. Actually on Friday morning to launch this initiative with the student body. That was the first time that we tried to do that with the students, so that was very well received as well. So that's from student council. A couple things from the school-wide things that are going on. Our debate team was able to successfully compete for the first time in 2 years, 2+ years actually, on Friday. And we hosted an event here where we had 3 other schools, Roxbury, Jefferson, and Sparta, here at High Point. And the debate team was led by Mr. Loyola. And I'm proud to say that we took 3 out of 4 on that first run through that. So just great to see the students involved. A lot of students were just observing, trying to figure it out what it looks like. Many students were competing. But that was a nice thing to see. Of course, protocols, and we had to have all kinds of things set up. The schools coming in, but it worked out very nice. And you know, again, you close your eyes, you sit and you listen to that debate, it almost feels like it's a normal situation, right? Much like it did when we noticed we replicated it this week too. It felt very normal too when we woke up on that. You know, sorry about that.
Don't be sorry, I was.
She was sitting next to Mrs. Anderson.
I know exactly where Mrs. Sedon was sitting. So I say that in a way because as a Sussex County individual for a couple years now, there's certain things that are about tradition, right? And there's certain things that you cannot replicate in any capacity. And I think part of that is the old SAL and the rivalry that we have with our next door neighbors with kids. So it was great to see a full gym. It was great to see the excitement. It was great to see parents and fans, people sitting in the same seats they sat for 30, 40 years, and a nice student section, which was very, very passionate and involved, and a lot of emotions that you feel when you watch that, and you pass. So we're very proud of being able to do that, as part of that as well. Also, this past weekend on Saturday, Mr. Dexter and I talked only about 2.5 weeks ago. He said, "What do you think about the Pretty in Pink?" And I said, "I think if you want to do it, let's go for it." And he is the inventor, leader, designer of that, along with the Smith family as well. 12 years we've been doing that program now. And the Pretty in Pink was able to raise several $1,000s in a short amount of time. Thank you to our community the donations that came in from all over the place. We were able to give that to a local family that is, as Mr. Kusin has said, working through and dealing with some tough situations with cancer. You know, again, there's nothing that replicates that emotion that you feel, whether it be $2,000, $6,000, $100,000 that is raising when you see that type of event. So we have 5 games all day long. We use both facilities in our beautiful facilities that we have, and then we had capped it off with the varsity win. Well, the boys wanted to give me a little bit of some heart palpitations, but made it through. The girls did as well. So it was a nice event for them. I just kind of watched everybody go through that end of that night. A lot of the kids kind of hung out on the gym floor, taking pictures with their friends, on the posters that were up. They didn't want to leave, right? So at the end of the day, that's what it's really about. It's about the classrooms, obviously, don't get me wrong, don't quote me someplace in the paper saying that I don't care about classrooms and academics, because I do. But seeing the kids be part of something and have that unique bond is pretty special. So that was evident, and so kudos to Mr. Dexter for coordinating that, and kudos to all of our volunteers, our parents that are involved with that, our community donations that came in as well. So just wanted to pass that on. We also had 2 students, Lily Arnett, who was chosen as the Branchville Rotary Student of the Month. We've had, I think, this is the 3rd student selected in a short amount of time from Branchville Rotary, so that's kudos to the guidance department who nominates those students and gets them involved. And then they participate on a Zoom meeting, and speak to the Rotary. And then Rotary, of course, is very impressed about what they're involved in, what they're doing. I'm also to Brianna Dunn, if you may have seen in the newspaper recently. Brianna Dunn is one of our fantastic art students. I'm looking behind you. Mrs. and Mrs. Smith, I don't think any of her artwork is there, but there's a lot of artwork that's behind you. Mrs. Dunn was chosen for Peters Valley, and with an article in the paper, I think it was Thursday of last week. A really nice article highlighting her work as well. One of our fantastic artists that we have year after year. So kudos to Mrs. Dunn, to our department, Mrs. Myers, Mrs. G. Nice, Mr. Sack, and Mr. Deal, as well. We also wanted to I wanted to pass on personally a thank you to Mrs. Holder. Mrs. Holder is our school nurse. That's indescribable. Mr. Dunn and I had a conversation the other night about COVID, obviously, because it's here, we're still working through it, and challenges that may exist, but publicly, I wanted to say thank you to Mrs. Holder. I've said it many times privately. I said it to at the staff meeting. We talked about coming together and things that we all have to do. Mrs. Holder is just like this all the time. She keeps me calm when I'm trying to get crazy and excited, which is sometimes often. And when you're dealing with things that you're not used to dealing with, and Dr. Griffin knows this, there's so many things that are just getting thrown at you. You know this in the school system, what it's like. And Mrs. Holder continues to be the strong force that keeps us on a right path, and a calm demeanor, handles phone call after phone call after phone call after phone call, after email to email. And I just want to say publicly thank you to Mrs. Holder for working through that process and helping us get to that process. And then last but surely not least, we did have our 8th grade open house this past Thursday. We did do it virtually with all the things that were still going on, bringing many parents in the building. So we able to participate in that. The nice thing about the virtual aspect of it is we were able to record it, much like we're doing this evening, and share it out to all of our 8th grade parents coming in, and also they'd be there for a resource. Because as you know, the parents that have come in, it's a lot of information at once. So for them to be able to process that, we had a live chat going on like we do here, ask questions as you go, post questions ahead of time, so we're able to answer questions on the spot, but also able to share that out with them so they can use that as a resource as they get ready to schedule for 8th graders in February and March. On Wednesday and Thursday of this week, as I've been talking to you about, we had to postpone it a couple times, but we have our 8th graders coming into the building on the half days for their tours. It's going to be a little bit of a different schedule than it's been in the past. We wanted to try to keep it from mixing so much as they used to, which they were here during the day with all of our students. So we're doing it by school, by pods, as they come in. So on Wednesday, we're gonna have Frankfurt, Lafayette, Montague, charter school and private schools coming together. And we'll keep them all separate as we do their tours. And then on Thursdays, the Swanage comes in as well. So we're looking forward to that. That usually is in November. We try to do that in November every year. We've been doing that for many years in November, but because of things where they were, we moved it again, and we're happy to say that's this week as well. And that kind of wraps up as we get to the second market period of midterms are happening this week. It works out nice because we're able to do a half-day schedule. Midterms started today, we'll continue tomorrow. And the semester 2 will start on Monday of next week for the new courses. Also want to say just thank you to Mr. Delaney, our guidance department, our child studies department, as we're getting ready to prepare for scheduling. There's many of us administrators that work on that. Mr. Yardley is in the back scenes behind that. Mr. Tokar is in the back scenes behind that. So there's a lot that happens behind the scenes of scheduling before it actually gets produced in June and July. So thank you to them for getting things lined up. And it's sometimes hard to get things lined up and still stay on somewhat of a timeline in order to be able to produce a schedule for our community and our students and our staff as we get into the summertime. So that's all I have, Mr. Dunn. Do you have any questions for anybody?
I just, the 8th grade tours are in the afternoon after the midterm?
Yes, this is to know, yep. So they're gonna start at 1 o'clock.
Okay.
Yep, 1 o'clock, and then about 2:15, 2:30. That works out well with some districts because of their transportation, so forth and so on. And it works out well that they can feed them and get them here and then get them back for the bus and pull out for them. So yeah, in the afternoon.
Good.
Yep. Susquehanna is a little bit later, but that's okay. At 1:30 for Susquehanna. Right? Thank you, Mr. Dunn.
Thank you, John. Next, the presentation for curriculum and instruction. I believe we had Mr. Seamus Campbell's presentation recorded.
Depending upon how successful this is, we may see this again.
There we go.
Good evening, folks. Well, Saturday night was indeed a great night to be a Wildcat. For the 12th year, the Pretty in Pink basketball program was held. Coach Dexter, who started the program with a gentleman named Tom Smith, as well as Coach Strell and the boys program. It was a great night. Over $180,000 has been raised by our community to support cancer and families who are suffering from this terrible disease. So it's an incredible night, a moving night, and we're really proud of our school for pulling it together. The students worked really hard to make sure that it was a success. Midterm exams, one day down, they're going great. Twice a year, we are required to publicly present on harassment, intimidation, and bullying. I'd like to recognize Mr. James Rice, who does the bulk of the work on these investigations and truly does a great job. A HIB is an act that substantially disrupts school operations or significantly impacts an individual in a negative way. It is an act targeted at a specific distinguishing characteristic about a person, race, gender, ethnicity, body type, socioeconomic status, religion, etc. Many times we investigate a possible HIB and conclude that it's not a HIB, but that does not mean that the behavior didn't occur, nor that the behavior wasn't addressed as a violation of the code of conduct. This is a 10-year view of HIB investigations. You can see there's considerable variation. And this year so far, we had a bit of an outlier in September through November where we had a spike in HIB investigations. We have taken steps to address conflict between certain groups of students, and we're happy to see that this trend has subsided. Each year we assess ourselves and how well we're managing the issue of HIB. We scored 74 out of 78. Again, this was a self-assessment. And based upon that assessment, we plan to do a broad overview of our entire HIB program, increase training for staff and students, and provide a suicide prevention training this school year. All of our HIB information is available on the opening page of the school's website. In September, we administered the Start Strong assessment to most students. We had not done state testing in 2 years. This year's assessment was given in September, so what it measured was student performance and students' proficiency based on last year's classes. We administered the test in 7 subjects, and results were fairly quick for the district. The individual student reports didn't come out until December, and they've been provided to parents, and our public presentation is here. Every time a student took a Start Strong assessment, they were scored as needing less support, some support, or strong support. So dark purple is a stronger performance. In language arts, the district showed greater proficiency than in math and science. And here is our performance across the board in each subject tested. In a subgroup analysis, which we're required to provide, female students scored higher in language arts, male students scored higher in math. We were pleased to note that there was minimal disparity among racial or ethnic groups. There was a noticeable variance or variable or distinction in performance based upon students with disabilities. And there also was some variation in performance when looking at students who are economically disadvantaged and not economically disadvantaged. This is always an area that we try and be cognizant of and to address. So that is our report this evening, our HIB presentation. Again, the 6-month view of the number of cases and our annual self-assessment, and a quick look at how our district did on the Start Strong assessments. And again, those Start Strong scores have been shared with individual parents, as well as teachers, and as well as students. So thank you for your time this evening, and have a great night.
So we don't have an exact opportunity to question Mr. Campbell, but if anybody had any questions, I'm certain we could pass those along. Either through the
We would
curriculum
like to be able
committee
to answer them as well, Mr.
Oh.
Callahan, so if you have any questions.
or anyone had any questions or comments?
Is the Start Strong just for this year? Is that something we're gonna start doing every year?
Likely, yes.
Every year?
Mhm.
Okay.
Oh, you think so?
Well, no, I'm sorry. Probably not.
Okay.
It will not replace, we don't believe it will replace the New Jersey Student Learning Assessment, which is every year. This year, they did this because they postponed, this was essentially from the prior year because they had to have one to comply. And so they just called it something different. So, depending upon what happens over the next 4 months, likely it will not happen. But
It would be nice if they changed these NJSLA assessments to mimic these, since they were only 45 minutes.
Right. If they do have, let's say, another uptick at the time of the assessment window, they may theoretically do a similar thing. There is discussion of that, but we don't know that yet.
I was curious about the disparity between ELA and math. Do you think that there was an extensive enough testing in those subject matters? If it was only 45 minutes to,
Well, part of the reason is that math is less transferable virtually, and that we believe that is a major factor in the disparity between those numbers. That is not historically, when we have the student learning assessment, we do not see that disparity between the math and the ELA, and so this is an outlier to which we attribute the fact that the bulk of that was done last year online.
okay. Any other comments or questions on that last presentation? If not, we can proceed. We have no other business. So let's get to action items. First, we have curriculum instruction and technology. Smith,
All
I
right.
know you.
So, just recognizing, faculty attendance rate, for December was 92.7%, and student attendance rate for December was 90.6%. And I know that there's been a lot of, discussion about, like, concern about teachers and obviously students being ill. So to see that it's still at above 90% is, I think, very admirable and a good thing. Let's hope it stays that way. Just recognizing the suspension report. We don't need to approve that, that's right? That's correct? So I am making a motion, seeking a second, to move items 4 through 7 for the HIB report. Number 5 is the curricular field trips, number 6 is professional development, and number 7 is the ELL plan.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Ms. Ireland,
Yes.
Ms. Sedona,
Yes.
Ms. Schuman,
Yes.
Mr. Comfort,
Yes.
Ms. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Arnold,
Yes.
Mr. Dunn,
Yes.
all motions carried.
I'm going to move item 8 by itself, approving the Tri-M Performing Arts National Honor Society for the 21-22 school year. With the voluntary advisors as noted. I think it is nice to see that appointment finally. We have a lot of other honor societies, so it's nice to see that. So making motion, seeking a second. Second. Discussion?
Mr. Comfort,
Yes.
Ms. Sedona,
Yes.
Mrs. Schuman,
Yes.
Ms. Ireland,
Yes.
Ms. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Arnold,
Yes.
Mr. Dunn,
Yes.
motion carried.
That's it?
That's it?
So next we have Personnel, sorry. Ms. Sedona.
Okay, I'm gonna move items 1 through 5. Item 1 is approving the substitutes as listed. Number 2 is approval of Marietta Monmouth, I don't know how to pronounce it, sorry, as full-time nurse's aide in a much needed situation. Number 3 is the extended medical leave for employees 743. And number 4 is the 6-period assignments as listed. And number 5 is the approval of the maternity child care leave for the absence of employee 936, beginning about June 17th and ending around October 10th. Making a motion, seeking a second.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Comfort?
On number 1, the personnel, yes to the first 3, I'll abstain from Gianna Valera.
And the rest, yes for 2 through 5?
Yes.
Yes, sir. Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Ms. Ireland?
Yes.
Mr. Schuman?
Yes.
Ms. Sedona?
Yes.
Mr. Arnold?
Yes.
Mr. Dunn?
Yes.
All motions carried.
Mr. Arnold, turn over you for your single. Alright.
Sure, I'll move item 1. Recommended that the board approves Donna Race as a volunteer to assist with the spring musical pending required background check confirmation. Make a motion, seeking a second.
Second.
Any discussion?
I said she's volunteering.
Yes.
Thank you.
for
Thank you for
volunteering.
volunteering.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Schuman?
Yes.
Ms. Ireland?
Yes.
Mr. Comfort?
Yes.
Ms. Sedona?
Yes.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Arnold?
Yes.
Mr. Dunn?
Yes.
Motion carries.
And I'll go back to you, Mrs. Sedona, for policy items.
I'm gonna move items 1 through 3. Item 1 is the first reading of the following new policies and regulations. It's policy 1648.13 about the school employee vaccination requirements. Policy 1648.14 about the safety plan for the healthcare settings in the school building during COVID-19, and regulation 5751 about sexual harassment of students. Item 2 is that the recommendation to approve the second reading of the following policy. Policy 2425, emergency virtual or remote instruction program. Item 3, the recommendation to approve the following revised policies. Policy 1648.11, road forward appendices, and policy 5751, sexual harassment of students. Making a motion, seeking a second.
Second.
Any discussion?
Yeah, I'm, just want to make sure, because it looks like number 1, regulation 5751 is the same as, but it's a policy versus a regulation, right?
Right.
Okay, sorry.
No, that's
I just
okay. And
noticed
so what happened is, we did not have regulation, which is new, which needed to be included to go along with the policy, both of which needed to be, first of all, we needed a first reading on the regulation, and so as to align with the regulation, the policy needed to be updated as well.
Thank you.
Any other discussion?
I appreciate those on the committee who actually read the, generally policies or regulations do not exceed 50 pages. Did, and so I appreciate your diligence in having endured that.
Roll call, please.
Ms. Ireland?
Yes.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Schuman?
Yes.
Mr. Comfort?
Yes.
Ms. Sedona?
Yes.
Mr. Arnold?
Yes.
Mr. Dunn?
Yes.
All motions carried.
We have no negotiations action items, but I do want to echo Lieutenant Russo's point that the board is also looking forward to final ratification of the contract agreement. And we're working diligently to get through the salary guides, and we'll have a response back to you soon, we hope. Buildings and grounds, there are also no action items. We did have the committee meeting this week. Mr. client's not here, so maybe I'll give a quick update. We were pleasantly informed that the tank, the underground tank was successfully removed.
I wouldn't
and-
use the word successful.
Well, successful from our standpoint, and once it left the High Point property, we
That's
didn't repair. And it was backfilled, so that project is very much nearing completion.
2-year saga.
Yes.
In the finest weather right now too, to do so.
Yeah, I know.
So,
No appearance of leaks, right?
no,
Okay.
that we're not.
Yeah.
That's very fortunate.
Yes.
So then I'll proceed to finance, and I would like to move items 1 through 5 together. First is a recommendation to accept the report of the Board Secretary Business Administrator for the month of December 2021. 2 is a recommendation to accept the report of the Treasurer for the month of December 2021. Item 3 is a recommendation to approve the report of transfers and minimum expense transfer report for the month of December 2021. And 4 is a recommendation to approve for payment the attached schedule of audited bills dated January 24th, 2022. And item 5 is a recommendation to accept the adult education agency account, athletic account, cafeteria account, principal's petty cash account, scholarship account, school store account, and student activities account for the month of December 2021. I'll make that motion. May I have a second?
Second.
Discussion on 1 through 5? Seeing none, I'll take the roll call vote.
Ms. Sedona?
Yes.
Ms. Ireland?
Yes.
Mr. Comfort?
Yes.
Mrs. Schuman?
Yes.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Arnold?
Yes.
Mr. Dunn?
Yes.
All motions carried.
And I would like to move final item in finance number 6 is a recommendation that the Board of Education acknowledges and gratefully accepts a donation from Chad Cowell in the amount of $500 for the Bradford Venavio Scholarship Fund. I'll make that motion. May I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Thank you, as
Yes,
always.
yeah.
We always appreciate the donations, especially in memory of.
Yeah.
So,
This is, this particular scholarship is one of the longer scholarships that came about due to an unfortunate demise of Mr. Denavio quite a few years back, and it has been awarded ever since. And for any of the board members, if you have an opportunity to attend the senior awards function that High Point puts on, I've been fortunate enough to attend as a board member and also as a member of soccer club prior to that, and it is just tremendous, a tremendous community and school partnership, what is offered to students. And now this is right about the time when students need to be putting their name out there, if anyone's listening, for these scholarships. You know, it's never too early. But we thank you, Mr. Cowell, for your donation. So with that, if there's no more comments, I'll take that.
I have one comment about that. I'd be interested to see if the Teresa Batterferrano Memorial Award is still given. I earned that here in 1998.
It is.
Still, and so I still have it, and I still think about it and remember that family. So I'm glad to hear that that's still a tradition. Oh, good to know.
I would say, Mr.
They're now doing Easter at school now.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Oh, wow.
Last year's ceremony was in a different venue that could not have been more spectacular. At the top of the mountain at Mountain Creek, overlooking, you know, the beautiful vista. It's just incredible to be part of. I've been fortunate enough to have a couple of daughters that have received awards, but also to present there. It's really, really cool. Okay. Oh, vote on this one, please.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
Mrs. Schuman?
Yes.
Mr. Comfort?
Yes.
Ms. Ireland?
Yes.
Ms. Sedona?
Yes.
Mr. Arnold?
Yes.
Mr. Dunn?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Mr. Carrazza is not here, so Mrs. Smith has volunteered to handle transportation for the evening. This is the very exciting portion.
So I'm going to move items 1 through 7 for various contracts, transportation contracts, and parent contracts for transportation. Making a motion, seeking a second.
Second.
Any discussion?
Mr. Crowley usually says something at this point, but just to
About
reiterate, really, I mean, she deserves, if the best we can do is once a month, tell her that she's doing a good job.
Seriously.
The situation that other schools in the county and the state and the country are in when it comes to busing and finding drivers and filling routes and getting kids to school. The fact that we are still getting kids to school is a minor miracle, and it's thanks to June, who somehow remembers all this and drives a bus when we need her to and answers phone calls, so.
Pretty sure she doesn't sleep.
No, I don't think so.
She drives frequently, and even this morning, when there was I knew that it was snowing when I went to bed, I texted her at like 4:50. I said, "Any problems?" She said, "No." And she got right back.
Oh my goodness.
There you go.
I would be remiss that Mr. Talman is always right there as well. But for some reason this morning, I didn't want to, because I was sure everything was good, but I just texted June, which never happens. It's always the two of them. And she's always responsive and is truly a tremendous asset.
So pass on our thanks.
Absolutely. And any other discussion? All right, roll call.
Ms. Ireland,
Yes.
Ms. Sedona,
Yes.
Mr. Comfort,
Yes.
Mr. Schuman,
Yes.
Ms. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Arnold,
Yes.
Mr. Dunn,
Yes.
all motions pass.
We have no long-term planning items on the agenda, nor do we have any legal items, and I do not believe we received any correspondence. So miscellaneous, our standing item regarding school board mandated training, I believe we all know that we're up to date on that, or anything that's pending,
Everyone has been scheduled.
or has been scheduled. Awesome. So we will then open for public comments, the second session of the evening. Same rules apply as the first. Please state your name and address. We will have 3 minutes to address the board, which will be timed by myself. We will limit this session to no longer than 45 minutes. Please be respectful and mindful that your comments are being recorded, and these comments are not limited to the agenda items at this time. We have the ability to make comments here at the podium or virtually. So if anyone's interested in making comments. Yes. Sure. We'll give you.
Good evening. Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy New Year.
Good to see you all again. Okay, Jana Bartz, 34 Unionville Avenue, Sussex. I know last time I was here, I gave you a lot of information to go home and do some homework with. Plenty. There was much of everything that you could have looked into as far as everything of references to emails to everything. And I struggled to come here tonight to start talking about since the last time I seen you and I gave you this information. It was hard for me to even accept. But I've had a lot of time to look into things. I do holistic healthcare and I worry about and taking care of my body and our health. So I haven't presented to you a few books that I presented to the middle school and the case against masks Okay, this book here, little 10-chapter, easy book for even the young kids to read. And this is all information that's been documented. Of course, this is being tried to be the real you-know-whom, and I don't have to say it, but this book has a lot of information in there that has been studied for years, and it's a lot to read. This right here, Dr. Fleming, that I have been following for almost 2 years, that has literally been bringing forward a lot of information that is ready to go to international courts, and he's also an attorney, and he can go to international courts to speak because he has the credentials. So there was 2 things I was gonna ask you to think about tonight before I even spoke about that. I was going to say common sense and critical thinking. And I don't know where that's going in the schools anymore. I really don't. Because I spoke about the fact that flu and cold season all of a sudden disappeared last year, and all you heard was about the one thing. So you gotta remember, we're back into the cold and flu season. The PCR tests were absolutely taken off from FDA emergency use December 31st, 2021. Because back in July, they publicized the fact that they were not accurate. They can't detect. They can't tell you if it's COVID, they can't tell you if it's a flu, they can't tell you if it's a cold, they can't tell you if it's something from 20 years ago. It all depends on how many cycles they spin it. The guy that invented it made it very clear, you cannot use this to detect something like COVID, okay? The thing is that we are torturing our children. We are putting them through all this that I'm having a hard time with because I have COPD, I can't breathe well, I have sinusitis and whatnot. So you gotta remember, you gotta think about the kids, it's not all one size fits all. And the shot thingy that's going around, we already know that the UK just shut everything down, Scotland just shut everything down, because the bottom line is that it's not preventing the infection, it's not preventing transmission, and our kids, again, are 99.998% to just get over this. And it's called herd immunity and that is like CDC just came out and said 6% or something like that. I mean, it's astronomical. Your immune herd is so much better than this quote so-called gene therapy that's not a vaccine, it's actually a bioweapon. It was man-made, and I hate to say this because it was frightening to me, but it is a fact, as I gave you the dossier that had all the information for you to read about and look into. And I just want you all to know that we need to protect our children, because we are the lab rats. We are the experiment, period. They did not do the animal testing. And now all of a sudden they're doing 1, 2, and 3 testing all together, which is unheard of. And we need to think about what's happening, because they all are coming back. All these doctors, 17,000 doctors were in Washington, not 17,000 yesterday, but all the doctors in Washington yesterday came out and brought forward 17,000 doctors that literally signed an affidavit that are trying to say what is happening because we're being censored. We can't treat our patients. We have a protocol. There is treatment. Early treatment is being censored. Our kids get sick every year. Where's our common sense and critical thinking? Why aren't we putting them home? Okay, kids, go to bed, stay in bed a couple days, eat your chicken noodle soup. You know what I'm saying? Come on, there's too much information. I can go on and on. I'm so sorry. Happy New Year. I'm so sorry, but I want you to look into what I gave you and to look into what's happening, because like I just said, the UK and Scotland has completely just dropped all this because they know it is not effective, it's not working.
Mrs. Bartz, I'd like to go a couple minutes.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Would we have any public comments virtually? Anyone is standing by our online portal?
Not right now.
Okay, no other people, no one interested in person, so I'll entertain a motion to close the second public comment section.
Motion.
In a second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, second public section is closed. We have no ability for anyone to make non-committee board member reports or comments. Anybody?
I just would like, always, to remind people about the food pantry. Bring in a can or two. I'm sure we've got plenty of space on those shelves to help those in need, especially this time of year. And then I know we talked a little bit about the mission statement, and we said we were gonna put it on hold because everybody was so incredibly busy, between everything that's going on. But, so I just don't want us to forget about it. That's all I'm saying now. Like as we get maybe towards the end of the year, at the end of the school year, like kind of see where we are at that point, and then.
Perfect opportunity.
Yeah.
I could just give the board and the community an update on, we had implemented test to stay on the 10th, I believe it was. That has been highly successful in keeping students on site who are not COVID positive. And our nurse has stepped up, has just done, again, a tremendous job, and done so with, it's pleasant and agreeable and is phenomenal. And we've implemented a manner in which we did that, which has been seamless and has resulted in kids being able to stay. And we have not seen those kids who tested to stay eventually test positive. So what we did was we enabled kids to stay who did not come back positive later on. So it's been a successful implementation. We had seen the first week and a half, the 2 weeks was pretty intense. We have seen a drop recently in those numbers. It doesn't mean we are COVID-free, but we're not seeing the significant amount we were from the 10th through that first week. The 10th through the 15th was just staggering. And so we're very pleased with the rollout of that, and it's kept kids in school and it has not harmed anyone. And so we're very pleased with that. It's going very, very well.
Our inventory of tests,
We're good.
okay.
We're good. We started out with 1,000. We're good. Hopefully,
Do you have any ballpark of how many students have been through the test this day?
ballpark, I would say under 100, but approaching.
Yeah. Okay.
Over that now in week 3. High 80s, I think.
100 kids in class?
Who remain in class, and none of whom, to my knowledge, ultimately ended up being positive, so
Wow.
very, very good. We remain the only district in the county to be implementing that.
And parents were quick about filling in the waiver, huh?
Yeah, particularly when they got a call
Yeah.
and found out that their child is going to be close contact. Wait, where do I go? Let me fill that out.
Well, thank you for jumping on that real quick.
And the nurses held up, you said she's doing well, she has a helper with that?
Yes, thankfully, we had considered that, anticipating the
Numbers.
process, and that individual is in place, and it's going exceedingly well, and has eased her burdens profoundly at minimal. So all right now, things are going well.
It's great if the kids have been able to stay in school. That's
Yeah. Usually when you don't hear anything, that's good news.
Yeah.
You usually hear the bad news. I've heard positive feedback from a number of members of the public,
Excellent.
about it, and the fact that we are pathfinding somewhat in that. Thank you very much for bringing that to the board.
It's, we're very, very pleased, so thank you for your support.
Any other non-committee board member reports or comments? If not, just our final item of other business. For the purpose of public disclosure in accordance with Open Public Records Act, High Point Regional High School Board Office has received and responded to the following Oprah requests over the past month. And there was one from Press Data Us for a bunch of information.
And the personal information for the staff, phone numbers, date of birth, addresses, any kind of personal information we redacted from the reports that they did not receive that. They only received information that is open for public disclosure. That information was sent out on the 4th. Ms. Wendell-Juski helped put this together, and I asked for them to respond to the Oprah to say that they had received it. They responded today that they received it. We have 10 days to complete an Oprah, and we did it in 1 day, and it took them
10 days to acknowledge it.
3 weeks.
Yes.
3 weeks.
Oh, yes. 3 weeks. Excellent. With that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion. I'm trying not to be emotional.
May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor for adjourn?
Aye.
Any opposed? Have a good night. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.